what's great about podcasts is there's that intimacy there. It's just audio. It's really fun when I listen to a podcast or I edit a podcast and I don't know how the guest looks like. I don't know anything about the guest, and I'm trying to imagine, what type of personality that guest has. And through voice, you get personality, but it's kind of like shaped in a different way.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jody Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. This is the second part of my interview with Nicolae Bogdan Bratis. So, talking about audio branding, just getting to that, I wanted to ask you what your clients could benefit from as far as an audio brand. Have you ever done one for one of your clients?
Not an entire audio brand. I created jingles for them, for their podcast, for example, or I created a jingle for their video, for their ad. So obviously what I do in this case is I start researching the clients. Even the color scheme they have on their website tells me a lot about how the music should sound like, what they talk about. And in terms of like choosing the sounds and all that, if I know that the podcast or the brand is in technology, I might choose more technology sounds and create different sounds from maybe real sounds. Because I think when we had our pre-conversation before the podcast, when we met first time, I told you about that I like the idea of getting real sounds, like sounds of, let's say, if the brand is in the clothing industry or fashion industry, I could get some clothing sounds and I could turn that into a sound because I can put it into a sampler or something, and I can create maybe a hi-hat or maybe a percussion instrument from that.
Kia just did that. Did you hear about that? The car company?
No.
Yeah, they did a whole bunch of sounds while inside and outside of their car, and then they made it available to people to use as samples in their whatever music they wanted to put together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
When you say jingles, though, do you mean like jingles with like words, or do you mean music for their videos or their intros and outros?
Both. So it's, for example, what I refer as a jingle is, let's say, it can be a music composition that can be used in different parts, not just in the podcast. It can be used in a video, or it can be used even in an ad. So what I do when I create a jingle, I provide different versions of that. And obviously, if they need something change in the future, the project stays on my server. And even 1 year or 2 years after our collaboration, I can still access it, and I can give different loops, different versions, different, maybe only the percussions. So when I talk about a jingle, I talk about a musical composition that can be expanded at any time. And if we want to add voiceover over that, that's totally fine. So I created a few of those for some of my clients. And I think I have one now in the process for a company called Crest. I think that's the name of it. And I'm still trying to find the sound of it. I worked a bit last month, but it's like with music, that's the thing. It's not just a practical thing you do. You need to have the inspiration there, because it's a creative work. So you have to be in there with your whole mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. How do you create something from what you know of the company? Do you have like a process that you go through, or how do you get inspired for that?
First thing first, I ask the client what the company is about. I ask the client also, to give me some references. Even it doesn't matter what type of music it is, if it's popular music, if it's something that they heard in another podcast, something they heard in a video or in an ad. I want to hear exactly what they think about their company through sound. And based on that, I start building up something. I send them a draft, and it can be rejected entirely, and I can start another one. Maybe I send 2 drafts or something. The idea is that I want to nail it from the beginning. So to do that, you have to research the company a bit. And like I said, even from the colors, you can really get like a sense. For example, if the website is yellow, that tells you a bit happiness, right? Then if you have that, maybe they talk, maybe their website is about, I don't know, let's say it's, I don't know, I don't have right now an example to give you, but let's say it's green. Let's say it's green, and then maybe the website is a meditation app of some sort. So they want a jingle to go with that. Obviously, if it's a meditation app, you might not add heavy drums and things like that. It needs to sound calm. It needs to sound happy. It needs to sound cool, chill. So yeah, that's another thing that I ask for my clients is adjectives. Give me some words, something to work from. So what are certain adjectives that describe your company or what you do, your brand? So I get those, and from that you can start building up something, and then you can send to the client the first draft, and from then on it evolves. Sometimes you start with something and you end with something else. So it's not clear process for me. It's more like a trial and error.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like any creative endeavor, right? You start something one way and you end up with something completely different, and it works just as well as you thought it would in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you something. That I noticed while I create a melody of some sort. I noticed that we are influenced by different musical experience we had in our lives, right? So obviously, when you start humming something in your subconsciousness, you start humming something that you already know. And it's maybe not original. Maybe it's a mixture of things. There's a book called Still Like an Artist, I think it's called. I'm not sure. I forgot who wrote it. It's a very short book. It's 50 pages. And it talks about how artists steal ideas from other places without actually realizing it. So I thought about it and I said, what can I do to not do that? Try to kind of like come up with something really original. Because, if we talk about popular music, there are some songs that just are out there. They are evergreen forever. They are amazing and they will never get old. I was thinking about what if I start hitting the piano randomly, in maybe not in a certain key, maybe go out from the key, and I'm trying not to think about any music at all. Try to think about only the mechanism of playing the piano. You know what I mean? So it's quite hard to explain. And it's good as a keyboard player to do that, because as a guitarist, it's harder to do that, just because the nature of the instrument. But with the 2 hands, you can play the bass with the left hand, with the right hand, you can play a certain melody. And sometimes you come with some really interesting results. It comes from randomness, if that makes sense. It's not coming from your mind. And then from that randomness, you can really develop something that kind of like gets, sounds original, sounds like I never heard that before, or maybe it's far away from the generic sound,
Yeah, that makes a lot. I like that a lot. Yeah, I'm also a piano player, although I haven't been practicing or doing it for a long, long time, actually. Yeah, I don't have a piano here anymore. I used to. I had a Roland 88 key, like one of the older ones from like the 80s.
Wow, I started with one from the 80s because my teacher gave me one. He lended one to me, and it was so bad. Like literally, it had 2 speakers and it didn't work properly. The piano has the velocity, so the harder you press the key, the harder, the sharper the sounds. Now that keyboard had the velocity, but some of the keys sounded at full velocity all the time. So I would play something classical, something very soothing, and then at some point you get just one note, like boom, like that, very, very sharp. and it would break the whole mood. So that's what happened is I there was a button on the keyboard where you would set all the keys at full velocity. Now, because of that, I didn't have any feelings anymore. I couldn't play quieter. I couldn't play louder. I was playing only at one level, like you would. I don't know how to describe it. There's no feeling in it anymore. So there's no velocity. So, and I would go at my teacher, and she would have a real piano, and I would play on that piano. Mm-hmm. And of course, there I could express my feeling into the song and whatever. But it would be quite some time until I would get into that mood, because I would play like feeling it without feeling at all. So yeah, that was a hard part of learning music for me. I didn't have a keyboard player. I didn't have a keyboard for a long time until I bought one, and then it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're much better now than when I had one. But yeah.
Now I have 4. I have 4 everywhere. I have too many.
They're everywhere. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
That's good, though. You're always composing something, so why not? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I have one in my bandmate's car. It's always there, because that's a problem with the keyboard players. You have to carry it around, and it's a very heavy instrument, especially the 88 key. And you have to carry it around. And I have it always in that car. It's an old one, but it works, and for the rehearsals only. So I don't have to carry it around all the time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, they are not light. It's not like carrying a guitar. I know we're all dealing with a lot these days, so I really wanted to acknowledge those that have gone out of their way to leave an honest review of this podcast. Like Hazel, who writes, "Great show, great selection of guests, and provides valuable insights about the sound industry. Thanks, Jody." Thanks so much for your kind words, Hazel. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. And for those of you that are interested, you can also leave a voice review now off of the main podcast page. It's super simple, and I'd love to hear what you think. Now, back to the show. I'm curious about the podcasts that you've seen that have had challenges. What kind of challenges sound-wise do most of these podcasts have? If you're talking about like current technology levels, we've overcome a lot of the stuff that would have affected early podcasting, but now there are different problems. Can you maybe talk about some of those?
Yeah. Now, I think we have too much choice at different microphones. That's a problem, So
Yes.
There's too much choice, too many products around. Some of them are good. Some of them are good for a specific purpose. So a common one, for example, which is, it still happens, unfortunately, even though the company Microphone Blue, they put it on the package that this microphone is a side address microphone. It's called the Blue Yeti Mic. Probably you're familiar with it. And
Yeah, it's condenser too, right?
many podcasters use this microphone, which sounds amazing if it's used right. So many of my early clients, especially, I don't know, I still don't see these as often as before, but I also wrote a blog about it. Like, if you buy a Blue Yeti microphone, some microphones are side addressed, which means you can't talk in them from the top. You have to talk in them from the side. So you have to think about, the dynamic microphone that you would have on stage, the singers would have on stage. Those are top addressed. Those are dynamic microphones which capture the sound from the top of the capsule. Now, this one that I'm talking into right now, it is basically, look, if I talk in here, it sounds very close and warm. But if I start talking from here, it sounds very distant and very, it sounds, you can hear a lot of the room as well. And people think that maybe the room is the problem, and they start investing in acoustic panels and all sorts of things. other people think maybe that's the software I'm using. So until they don't get a professional to help them, they can't really nail it, because there are so many things that can play, in destroying your recording. You may solve something, or it's kind of like a trial and error, that if you don't know exactly what you're doing, it can take a long time until you figure it out. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things. And of course, like I said, the headphones, not wearing headphones. Also, the room you're recording in.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, the room you're recording in. Sometimes I tell my clients, you want to record in this room, in this living room, it's too big. Probably you should go into the bedroom. I know it sounds strange, but you maybe do this once a week. I think you can go into the bedroom, and there you can open the doors of your closet, for example, where there's more fabric in, and that would absorb some of the reflections in your environment.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. I think one of the problems also with the condenser mics is that it picks up the rest of the room. It picks up things very, very easily. So, yeah, it gives you more nuance in the human voice, definitely, but it picks up a lot more around you. So if you're worried about your environment, a dynamic mic might be the way to go. And, maybe then you don't have to worry about a closet. So,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the dynamic mic is really useful in non-ideal environments. That's why
Mhm.
at conferences, on a stage, you always see dynamic microphones. It's kind of like the go-to microphones for people that want to be flexible. Now, if you have a studio, definitely get a condenser, because you get a better sound. It sounds crispier. It sounds warmer at the same time. It's more complete. And of course, you don't have to stay really close to it either. You can stay like this far away, and then you can capture sound pretty, it sounds decent.
Yeah. Do you have particular microphones that you suggest to people if you're not suggesting the Blue Yeti?
I'm suggesting the Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti is a great mic, but if it's used correctly, actually, some of the best podcasts I edit now, they use Blue Yeti microphones, and it sounds okay. The Audio Technica has a few models that work quite well. The one that I'm talking into right now, I got it as a gift from the sound card I bought for my studio, which is an Antelope microphone, and it's a high-end microphone. It's a good mic. Audio Technica, that brand is awesome for mics. Shure, that's great again. Sennheiser, it's amazing again. Now, in terms of like models, exactly, it really depends on the room you're recording in again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one. The environment is really important, actually.
Yeah, if you're let's say a voiceover artist, someone that works in audio professionally, and you're not just recording podcasts, maybe you record audiobooks and stuff like that. There are some really high-end microphones out there, over £1,000 price range, which make a big difference. I won't say it doesn't. Some people think that you may buy just the brand, but I have, not sure if you see it in the back, it's one of those. But yeah, the people that listen to the podcast, they can't. But yeah, I have one Manly microphone. Manly, it's called. It's a USA microphone, USA-based company. And I bought it last year. And it's an expensive microphone, and it's amazing. It has a tube inside.
Yes. Oh, the tubes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds wow. But I don't use it for podcasting and stuff like that, because I'm using now this microphone. I think it's enough for this purpose. Yeah, that's another thing. Use what suits the purpose of your like don't use something that is like costs £600 or more than maybe £200 for a podcast. I think it's enough, because microphones nowadays are so good. Even the $100 microphone will sound good enough. It's going to be good. Your audio will not suffer at the end of the day.
Sure. As long as it's not your microphone from your computer, you're probably doing good. I mean, for me right now, I'm talking to you on a Sennheiser 416, which is what I do my daily voiceover on.
Mhm.
And that's not a cheap mic either. But at the same time, it is for a very specific purpose, and it is a very directional mic. So even though I'm in a booth, I'm in a
Mhm.
5x4 sound treated, not soundproof, sound treated booth. So that makes the environment sound better. Because this is very directional, you're really not getting a whole lot of the room anyway.
You sound really good, by the way. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. That's kind of the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast. There's a lot that's going on with podcasting these days, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I think it's really a fantastic time to be doing this.
I think it's gonna get better and better.
Yeah, definitely. Where do you see it going in the future, actually? I'm curious as to where you see people using podcasts, how they'll listen to them, what they'll accomplish with them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I would say like podcast for me is like the continuation of radio, analog radio, FM and AM,
Yeah.
but it's internet. What's great about podcasts is there's that intimacy there. It's just audio. It's really fun when I listen to a podcast or I edit a podcast and I don't know how the guest looks like. I don't know anything about the guest, and I'm trying to imagine, what type of personality that guest has. And through voice you get personality, but it's kind of like shaped in a different way. Like with video, you have so much distraction going on. While I'm listening to a podcast, I can do whatever I want in the meantime, and I can drive a car. I can go to, I don't know, listen to it while I'm going somewhere. And with a podcast, what I like is that we as people, we as society, we get busier and busier, and we consume more and more content. Like you see, like for example, people like even myself, I go to TikTok and I stare at the phone for maybe 30 minutes and I realize that, oh, I'm not doing something productive. And people are waking up from that state where they are drawn into that, hypnosis, I could say, of video, and start doing something while they listen to something, podcast, for example, right? And I think it's going to get even more popular than it is right now because I get loads of requests for starting new podcasts. I see people coming with even interesting, even better ideas. For example, I work with, it's not really a podcast, it is a podcast, it's an audio content. It's called Inner Realms Journey, and literally there's stories through audio only, and it's like a movie, and you literally transposed into a realm, and the visual part of that audio is just your imagination. So you think about it like, what's happening in there, and you can imagine things yourself. So people, I think podcast and audio content, like Clubhouse.
Oh, Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So people get into it more and more, and it's great, and I think it's gonna get bigger for sure.
Yeah, I think you get to know people by the sound of their voice a lot more easily than you do by watching their social media. That's just been my experience.
Yeah. I see a transition to, podcasts getting video as well. I don't say it's a mistake or is it something good. I say that it really depends because, for example, if your podcast is about something that may need to present something visually, like let's say you want to show graphs, you want to show certain things that you can't really explain through voice only, then yeah, by all means, create a video podcast as well. But I really like the idea of just listening to someone's voice is awesome.
Yeah, and it's easier, as you say, to do other things while you're not looking at a video.
Yeah, it puts you in a corner. Even the creators, they have to shape the sound in such a the story in such a way that it works audio only. If you try to, because I have this experience as well. There's podcasts where they have the video component first, so they record a video in their studio and they want to turn that into a podcast, and I have to cut quite a lot of content just because there's so much visual references into the podcast where people may not actually understand because it's just audio. So yeah, it's interesting. I could say.
There's definitely a difference, though. You're right. Yeah. So you want to make sure that if you're going to have a video podcast, that you're aware of the fact that people are going to be only listening at some point in the future. So if you reference something visually, you want to make sure you explain it so that they know what's going on audibly.
Exactly.
So what are you working on right now? Are you working on a bunch of different podcasts or one in particular? Or making music for a company?
Yeah, so I work, I think at the moment, I think I'm in charge of about 35 podcasts.
Oh, wow.
It's like a round number. I'm not, it may be 30 or it may be 40, I don't know. And me and my team, we're developing a few new shows right now for different clients. Now, I also help out with the graphic design of the podcast. Someone in my team writes the show notes. So it's quite a very involved process. And I'm trying to solve as many problems for the clients. But myself, as being the owner of the company, I'm doing only the audio part for most of the shows. And yeah, I work with a few clients right now at the moment. I have that the other client that I told you about, the Inner Realms Journey. This is an app where people can go and have a listen to my work there. There's a lot of sound design going on there. I really love working on that project because it involves more creativity. And yeah, those are kind of like the projects I work at the moment. If you want to see exactly what projects I work on, you can go on my website at soinsign.co.uk/our clients. I guess that's the URL.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely be including that in the show notes. And I wanted to ask you, just to sort of end our discussion here, why you think the sound of a company is important. And especially now, but also mirroring the sound of the company in the podcast that they promote.
Well, this is a difficult question, I guess, to answer. I'm trying to answer it. So like I said,
Well, what does it do for a company, do you think?
Well, the audio, like the sound. I mean, it can really elevate it or it can destroy it for sure, because many people, like I said, they overlook the audio just because it's not something very obvious. It's not visual. We as human beings have kind of like the sense of hearing as a second nature, not a second nature. Yeah, it's not our first nature; it's our second nature. So visually we are more evolved, but sound-wise we overlook a lot of things. And same goes with the companies. They overlook the sound bit of their branding, and that can really, it can make the brand look a bit unbalanced. It may look a bit not as professional. And if you take care of your sound, your audio in your brand, obviously anything you do, being your website design, your visual video, anything that it's with the audio, it's accompanied by the audio, it will look even better. Think about horror movies, right? So if you have a horror movie with a funny track in the background, that horror movie might not be horror anymore. Same with the branding. If you have something that doesn't sound as professional as you want to look, then you may not look as professional as you want to be. So it's kind of like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like the horror movie with the comedy track. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it does take you out of the moment, definitely. That's good.
Or watch Home Alone with a scary movie track.
Whoa.
That would be very horror. It would not be a comedy anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, very different
You would
experience.
always expect something. Yeah.
That's so true. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, are there any other places that people can reach out to you if they'd like to do that? Any other URLs or things that you want to mention?
Yeah, people can reach me on my website. It's called soandsign.co.uk. Now, if you don't know how to get that in, definitely Jody will put it in the show notes. So that's my website. I provide podcast editing, audiobooks as well. So we kind of like provide full service for audio brands. And obviously I'm on social media. I'm not that active on social media at the moment for whatever reason, because I'm trying to stay away from it right now at the moment, because it's, especially with the COVID that just passed, it's too much. And now we have all the issues around the world. I'm trying to stay away from all that negativity, and I may not be that active, but definitely you can reach me on Instagram as well. So Instagram /soandsign and Facebook /soandsign again. So I'm there, and also on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page as well, so you can reach me out there as well.
Great. Yeah. LinkedIn is probably my my business place of choice. But yeah, I find that a lot of audio professionals are there. So it's nice to see that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's awesome because many people, you can find many other podcasters in there, because usually they put their tag, look, I'm a podcast host. And usually business professionals tend to be podcast hosts as well. And I think I forgot to tell you that, but if you go on my website, I provide a free trial for anyone that wants to work with me. So if you want to get your first show edited and you want to hear how it sounds like, I'm doing it for free for the first episode. So there's nothing you can lose in doing that. So just get in touch with me and I'm happy to help.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that. Yeah. And thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been really a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Cool, Jody.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available on all the usual outlets. Until next time,